really excited to partner with Zovio on this panel. And so during our discussion today, we're going to focus on women in STEM, but really focus on that T, technology. And so we're really excited to have 4 really amazing ladies with us today to share a little bit about themselves and their careers. So our presenters for this session are going to be Leanne McGowan from Zovio, Rachel Troy from Full Stack Cyber Bootcamp, Christina Gutierrez from Zovio, and Emily Loja from TutorMe. So we're really excited to have all 4 of them with us today. So thank you, ladies, for joining us. Before we get started, I wanted to go over a few quick things, agenda items. So during the first part of our conversation, our presenters will provide information about their careers and themselves, how they got there. Once the presentations have concluded, we'll take a few minutes to answer questions in the chat. And then kind of depending on the flow, we might go into some breakout rooms so you can have a deeper dive with each of our presenters, or we might stay here together and have a more in-depth conversation. So we'll see how the flow goes. And then we'll make sure to wrap up and have some share outs about best learnings and some final thoughts from each of our presenters. Before we get started, just a quick reminder, we are streaming to Facebook Live today, and we have our 4 presenters. So if you could just stay muted. Having your camera on is great. It makes it fun and more enjoyable for our presenters and each of us to be able to see you. If you can't, that's totally fine too. But just stay muted for now until we're done with our presenters. And if we go into breakout rooms, of course, at that point, you can unmute yourself. So with that, I'm very excited to present to you Leanne McGowan from Zovio. So I'll let Leanne take it over.
Hello, thanks for having me. This is quite an honor. So I had a little fun putting my slides together to tell you all a little bit about myself and a little bit about my career and how I ended up at Zovio and how I ended up in, a technology career. So I started out in going to college. I'm not going to say the date and time because that's really going to age me. But I was in accounting for 12 years. And then we moved to St. Louis, Missouri. And at that point in time, I applied for a position. It was the downturn of the economy. I had my bachelor's degree. Wasn't really loving accounting, but it was good. And I applied for a position as a financial analyst. And in that interview, I remember my boss he did become my boss. I remember him asking me if I knew anything about SQL and what my skill level was. And I don't know what SQL is. So this was way back in the early 2000s, right? So had no idea, walked out, there's no way this guy's gonna hire me. He hired me, and that's where I found my love for data. So he's my mentor to this day. It took someone to have that belief in what I could provide and the skill set that I could bring to the organization and what I could learn. And he took me kind of under his wing. So at that point in time, I decided I was going to go back to school, get my master's. The economy was a little bit harder then to get jobs because of the state of the economy. And when we moved to California, that's whenever I found Ashford University. So whenever I applied for Ashford University, I was actually in the institutional research department and took a job as an institutional research analyst. And what I did every day was write SQL logic. I built tables, I built objects in the data warehouse. I did reporting. I built dashboards in Tableau, SSRS, just to name a few things. We did a lot of the regulatory reporting too, a lot of the state fed, which still is with me today. That has been the one consistent thing that I've had through my journey here at Ashford, now UAGC and Zovio. So to fast forward a little bit in my career, we moved over to Bridgepoint at that time, which is now Zovio. And I continued to advance in my career, continued to develop skills here at Zovio, continued to meet with executives and business leaders throughout the organization to meet their requirements and their needs with data. I have a love and a passion for data. I have the opportunity every single day to work with some very passionate and very talented developers on my team. And you'll hear from Christina Gutierrez here later. She's an amazing developer and she'll share her path. But today, to fast forward to where I'm at today, I have risen to a leadership level where I'm actually very excited about what I do every day. I get to share data, share insights with the business that has significant impacts on decisions that are being made within the organization on a daily basis. No day is the same. Some days I think I can predict what's going to happen. I can be completely wrong in that prediction. It just depends on what is happening in the business, because I am a supporter of all of the business. And if there's something that's urgent for them, then we have to jump on it, as we typically do, to meet their data needs. Let's see, what else about me? In my spare time, you can see I have kids. I like to have fun. This picture right in the middle was it's a painting on I guess words on the wall at the Zovio location in the Chandler office. And I was super excited because one of the executives that was there, they're like, Leanne, look, you made the wall. And it was just because the data analytics was up there with predictive and tailored it for every individual. So that's why I'm pointing to that. It was a fun little thing whenever we opened up the office in Arizona to be there and be a part of that. As side hobbies, I like to be outside as much as I possibly can, love to go hiking, love to teach my kids. I love to try to push them into STEM type programs. They sometimes roll their eyes. They're teenagers now, so that happens. And I make cakes as kind of a completely off side hobby that is not even related to my career, but it's kind of my outlet to some of those stressful days that I have from time to time. That's a little bit about me. So I've worked in, several sectors. I've worked in, I started my career out in metal industry. I've worked at CPA firms. I've moved across the country. We were a military family. And I think moving across the country has really helped me broaden my skill set and have made me a very diverse employee and valuable, because I'm able to transition very quickly and easily. But so one piece of advice that I'll leave you with is that, I go back to that first interview that I had in St. Louis, that if you are interested in something, you need to go get it. Because if you're applying for a job that you're completely 100% qualified, you're aiming too low. So I will leave you with that thought.
Thank you, Leanne. That was wonderful. And I think cakes make sense in this odd way, right? So sometimes our brain, when we're analytical, we can also be incredibly creative. So being able to, you see a lot of musicians who are really good in math, for example, and they kind of go hand in hand, right? And so recipes and putting things together and understanding, how they do that, I think they actually go hand in hand. I love that you do that as well as your data analytics. That's really cool. Thank you. Yeah. And I love your advice. I mean, I think it's great, right? You went into accounting and then you were like, hey, not really for me, it turns out. And that happens for all of us, right? And to be able to be open to that and pivot into something else, I think is a great takeaway for a lot of our students and even just people on the call. So thanks for sharing that with us.
For sure. Yeah, that's been very important for me too. As I interview candidates too, I always keep that path in mind. I'm like, you can get a good sense for who someone is, just in short conversations.
Yes, I absolutely agree. Well, thank you so much. And we're looking forward to learning a little bit more about you in those breakout rooms or later in the conversation. So thank you. All right, I would love to introduce Rachel Troy, and Rachel is from Full Stack Cyber Bootcamp. So welcome, Rachel.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. Hi to everyone who's joined us. Happy to tell you a little bit about myself. So my name is Rachel Troy. I am from Indianapolis, Indiana, which is in the Midwest, sort of in between Arizona and New York, which is where I am now. I attended Indiana University and graduated with a double major in journalism and political science. So neither are STEM, specific fields, but I think that's a great thing about the STEM and technology fields is that it requires all types of people and all types of skill sets and attracts all types of people as well. And so my story is very much that. So after I graduated college, I moved to New York City, and I did that because I was sort of really excited about getting out of Indianapolis and getting to a bigger city. And I did it without a job in mind. So I moved to New York City and had to make it work. And I started with jobs in the service industry. So I was waitressing on nights and weekends, and on weekdays, I was sort of like hustling, trying to figure out, okay, what does a career path look like here? So I looked at and did a couple of different internships. I worked at a public relations firm for a short period of time. I also did some work for a literary management company. And eventually, after trying my hand at a bunch of different things, I found the opportunity to work as an office manager at a company called BetaWorks. So BetaWorks is what we call an accelerator in the tech ecosystem. So New York City is a hub of tech innovation. And so it's very common to have these organizations called accelerators that is a company that invests time, space, energy, advice into smaller, very, very early stage companies. So BetaWorks has a portfolio of 6 to 8 companies at any given time that works out of their office space that they invest some money into so that these early stage founders can pay their bills while working on this new product. And they also get the benefit of the guidance from the people who are leading the accelerator. So that accelerator, BetaWorks, had a lot of really great companies come out of it, including Giphy. Don't know if anyone has used that product, but it's a really fun product and one that is very close to my heart, as I was in the office when that company was being built. And I think that's really the most exciting part of having worked sort of as an office manager at that time. I mean, I learned a lot in terms of office culture and administrative work and culture building, but the opportunity to be so close to entrepreneurship was really inspiring. And it was really awesome to watch these people as they build their new products, figuring out, what is it that people really like? What is it that people aren't going to use very frequently? And how do we pivot really quickly? Those were all really sort of inspirational points. And then about a year into my time at BetaWorks, I joined one of the smaller companies, started as a community manager at a company called AlphaWorks. So this company would do crowdfunding for investment in early stage companies. As community manager, my role was to work with our customers to make sure that they were having a really good experience on our platform. And if they weren't, to be able to collect that feedback and share it with our internal teams, with our developers or our product managers, to make sure that we were enhancing our product to meet the users where they were. And that was really valuable because I got to learn how to communicate both up and down, how to communicate to our customers, how to share those insights, and how a company will change a product to make sure that it is meeting users where they are. So that was really valuable. After about a year at AlphaWorks, I joined a nonprofit called Coalition for Queens. Queens is a neighborhood in New York City. And the goal for Coalition for Queens was to build a tech training program that would take adults from low income or underserved communities and give them all the skills that they would need to launch a new career as a mobile developer or as someone who builds programs for your phone. And my particular role there was to actually build that program. So I worked with developers and engineers at top tier software companies to determine what it is that we should be teaching these students. And then I helped build the structure and figured out how these students are going to learn these topics. And then we talked about, okay, what do you do after they have these topics? How do you move on to get a job in the career? And that was really valuable because I got to see something from start to finish and, go through this program with 100 odd really great people. And then I moved to Full Stack, where I am now. Full Stack Academy is a company that is sort of a technology education company. It's committed to teaching the technologies that will power the future. So we have web development, coding, cybersecurity, and we're looking at other types of curricula we can share with the world. And the goal is to help people who are interested in making a career transition into technology, making that transition easier, getting them those skills faster so that they can make that transition quickly. So I've been at Full Stack Academy as a product manager for about 2 years. And my role there is basically to help envision, design, build, and execute these new programs that will help people fulfill these new opportunities in the market. So that's a lot in a short period of time, but I look forward to answering any questions about my role or my background, as we go into deeper conversation.
Thank you, Rachel. Wow, I love your bravery and your flexibility. Like you're like, I'm moving. I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm just gonna. We always tell our chief science officers, our CSOs, to fail fast, fail forward, fail often, and fail smart. Right? So it's like just jumping in and taking risks. But you were also smart. You were like, okay, I know I'm going to have to do these side hustles while I kind of figure out what I want to do. So you were finding that balance, but still being really brave in just making this change. And I love that. I was like, when I looked at your slide earlier, I'm like, why does she have Giphy on here? I was like, I'm so curious to find out what she has going on in here. So that was awesome. I love that. I love when I love entrepreneurship as well. We press that a lot with our CSOs and just the entrepreneurial mindset. And I'm sure that's played a big role. Just that framework and your bravery and entrepreneurial spirit has probably played a big role in your journey. So that was so fun to learn about you. Awesome. All right. So next, I would like to introduce Christina Gutierrez, who is from Zovio. Christina, I'll let you take it from here.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited. So my name is Christina, and as you can see from my slides, I am the oldest of 5 children. Family is everything to me. So I wanted to make sure that I included them in here because that's what I love to do, is spend time with my family. And just a little bit about myself. I moved to California when I was 9 years old. I used to live in Mexico before that, and English is not my first language. So that was the first thing that I had to do, was learn English. I then went to San Diego State University and got my bachelor's degree in communication and started my career in sales and customer service. I actually worked for Enterprise Rent-A-Car for a year before I found Ashford University, where I started as an enrollment advisor. From there, I had the opportunity to get into positions where I had to learn Excel. And that's how I kind of started getting into reporting and learning about all these wonderful things that we can do with data. So as I learned about Excel and reports and data visuals, I had the opportunity to join a team in what was back then Bridgepoint for reporting and data analytics. And then had the blessing to be able to be in data management with Leanne, where I've learned a lot more about data visuals, and all these wonderful systems that we have. So yeah, I started in sales, got into reporting. Now I'm in data management. And it's been wonderful. I've been with Zovio for 8 years, and I just wanted to say that I didn't start in data. I didn't think that was going to be my path, but it is, and I love it. And if you want to get into a STEM career, it's never too late, because there's always a way, and if that's what you love, you can get there. It's a wonderful thing, because everything that I've done from day one, I feel like it has taken me here. Getting my degree in communication, getting to be an enrollment advisor, all of those things help me every day to communicate with the business, learn how to listen to them, learn about their needs, and also understand what they want, because I've been in their position before, I've been in their department before, I understand how the process works. So every little step, it helps, and everything is there for a reason, and it will, at the end, it will be worth it. So I do love food. I love working. I'm a workaholic, and I love my job, so it makes it a lot easier. I then had the opportunity to get my MBA and also my Master in Information Management Systems with Ashford University because of Zovio. So I am just so thankful to be here, to be part of Zovio, and for all the opportunities that I've had. So I just want to conclude by saying that if you want to finish your career, and if you want to be part of data or whatever part of STEM career you want to be, it is possible and it's never too late.
Thank you, Christina. I love that because CSO Marissa just dropped in the chat something I think is really important, and you hit on, actually all of you have hit on, right? She's like, it's just so interesting to hear that you've all changed careers multiple times, which is very different than the narrative that they're told in school. So she's a junior in high school, kind of helps her takes a little of the pressure off, like, okay, as a junior at 16, 17, right? 18, you're like, okay, make your decision in life and this is what you must be, right? Versus, I've had lots of careers, mine have always been in education, right? In some way, shape, or form, but they've been, if I never would have guessed I would be here, right? In a million years, I thought I'd always be a sixth grade teacher, and that's just where I would stay, and that's where I'd retire. And I've been all over doing all sorts of different things, right? So I think, having all three of you so far share that path, I think for CSO Marissa, I know CSO Shalea is on, and others, right? CSO Saiba, I think that's really good. And it's okay. Maybe you do find something that, you've always been passionate about and you stick with it. That's great too. But it's also great to pivot and change and iterate yourself over a course of time. And Christina, as you said, right, it's never too late. You can do those things any point in your career. So thank you for sharing that.
I just wanted to add too, the most important thing is to always look for more and try to learn more things. Like you never know everything. So always keep looking for things to learn.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for that piece of advice, right? Be curious to always learn is so important, because we can pretty much do anything if we're curious and open to learn. So many more opportunities will come that way. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, all right. So let's see. There we go. Next, I'd like to welcome Emily Loja from Tutor Me. Emily, why don't you share a little bit about yourself?
Hello, everyone. Like it was said, my name is Emily Loja, and I'm a senior product manager at Tutor Me, which is an online tutoring platform for students around the world. A little bit about me and some background. I'm from Los Angeles, where I still live today, but I love to travel, play guitar, and I'm a huge animal lover. So that's why there's a photo of me there with a cow and my dog, Lucy. I grew up in a house full of dogs and cats, but we also had chickens and horses and goats. So animals have always been a huge part of my life. Similar to so many of these other women, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I definitely didn't know that I wanted to go into product management. I worked at a few nonprofits for a while, thinking that I wanted to go into fundraising, and then worked in marketing. So I definitely explored a few careers, but shortly after graduating from Loyola Marymount University, where I studied business marketing, I became a project coordinator at a children's toy company. And it was there that I slowly started realizing that I had a passion for technology and figuring out ways to build better products for customers. And one of my early projects was sort of sending out product samples to bloggers to review. It was a talking doll at the time. And I started collecting all of the feedback I was hearing, and was talking to our vice president of research and development one day and decided to just lay it all out for him. I brought all the feedback and my ideas on how we should incorporate it into future updates. And the next day, he called me into a meeting and asked if I wanted to become an associate product manager on his team. And I immediately said yes, and walked back to my desk and literally Googled, what is a product manager? Because I had no idea what it was, but I figured I'd wanted the job. So a little bit about what it is that I do as a product manager, and Rachel touched on this. I define what products and product features we build next and work cross-functionally to bring them to market. So product managers sort of sit at the intersection between business, the user experience, and technology. And one of the most important things that I think was mentioned in sort of the data careers, and Rachel's another product manager, is sort of that natural curiosity, right? How do we learn new things? I didn't learn technology in school. I took some computer programming classes, and I had a little bit of interest, but I never saw it as a career for myself. I didn't know that I had any potential there, but sort of my natural curiosity and my eagerness to learn brought me to dive into different sections of the business and deliver those products. So, on the business side, I work on the product strategy, on the user experience. I'm always looking for how to be the voice of the customer, learning what they like, don't like about our product. And then probably the best and biggest part of my job is that technology piece. So daily, I collaborate with engineering to sort of drive our initiatives forward and figure out new ways that we can innovate. So product managers don't actually do the coding, but we do have to understand the technology behind our products. We have to know if our ideas and concepts, are we actually able to build them within a certain time frame? Because if we can build it 10 years down the line, that doesn't really work. And we're also responsible for breaking down our ideas and into tasks for engineering. So over the years, I've taken what I've learned. I started in product as that associate product manager for toys, building robotic dogs and mobile games, virtual reality. Then I went on to be a product manager for a construction software company. And then I found my senior product manager role at TutorMe, which I fell in love with, being in the education space, providing ways that students can really advance in their classes. And what I really love about my job is seeing the impact that I have, receiving notes from students saying that we help them succeed, knowing that my team helped them get to where they're going. It's really rewarding. So if there's one thing that I can leave you with today is sort of similar along the lines of everyone else who's spoken so far, is that I didn't know that I would end up in a STEM field, and I didn't think it was an option for me. I faced a lot of self-doubt. Did I belong? I didn't study it in school, but just be eager to learn, and you can provide a lot of value. So I encourage you all to explore a career in STEM. It's extremely rewarding and challenging in a great way.
Thank you, Emily. I love that. And you said a couple of things. So Miss Kelly for the CSOs is always telling them, say yes, right? So you sometimes you're like, I don't have any clue what I'm going to get into, but say yes, and then go Google it and figure it out, right? You're like, I don't know what this role is. What's a product or project manager, right? And it's like, Google, oh, that sounds super cool. Okay, I can figure that out, right? But saying yes to opportunities, because you don't know where your passion will come from. You don't know what door it might open, right? That might not be that specific thing, but you learn something about it that sparks something that goes somewhere else, right? So I love that you said that. I think that's so important. Just say yes and jump in, see what happens, right? I love that. So, and the other thing you said I really appreciated was collaboration. So understanding that STEM is really how we all work together, right? We aren't in isolation in these silos. I'm sorry, I'm just doing science right now. I'm just doing technology right now. I'm just doing engineering. I can't talk about language. I can't talk about the arts. I can't talk about, no, they're all integrated, right? How we work together, all those things come together and flow. And so I think you talking about that your role, right, is kind of that center, that conduit for all those different roles that are happening and making sure that communication flow happens. So that was awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
We do have one, actually, we'll come back to the questions in just a minute. I know that at this time, I'm going to go ahead and, well, wait just a minute, but we do have a few other of our Zovio team on today. So I would love just maybe 1 minute or so, however long really you want to talk, I suppose, but I mean, I guess I'll cut you off at some point, but a few minutes, just share a little bit about yourself and your role. So Samson, do you want to go first?
Definitely. Hello, everyone. My name's Samson. I'm part of the corporate social responsibility team at Zovio. And I think, Hope, you said it the best. It's just a giant journey that really leads us to finding our passions and figuring out where it fits in STEM. For me, I came into college figuring out I was going to be a lawyer, a high-powered one in New York, suing people, making a ton of money. But as I progressed in college, I realized that wasn't my passion. My passion really was in social impact and sustainability. And I found this great opportunity at Zovio, but really coming up, I didn't know what I was going to do. Besides focus on helping people. And it was a very winding journey to get where I was. And a lot of times my passion in social impact and sustainability has touched on the STEM field. Before I worked at Zovio, I focused on sustainable fuels and sustainable technology, like next generation solar panels and fuels and things like that. And luckily now I'm getting to work with a company that's figuring out how to use technology to help other people become educated and find those careers in the STEM field. So yeah, just wanted to share with you that.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. That was wonderful. And again, to your point, right? You think you're going to go one way. I'm going to be a lawyer. I'm going to do all these things. And you're like, turns out.
Is that what you're passionate about? You kind of have to figure out where everything connects and what you want to really do.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Jennifer, we have you on the call as well. Do you want to share a little bit about yourself and your role?
Hi, yes, thank you so much. My name is Jennifer Love Bruce, and I oversee Zovio's corporate social responsibility. I work along with Samson, and my career journey has been very similar to some of the other people that have spoken today, in that it's really been quite a journey. In college, I wanted to be a radio personality, and that was my dream. I have a huge passion for music and love it. And sadly, in my junior year, my university ended the radio and television sequence. So I had to change directions quickly. And I ended up focusing on public relations. And it wasn't exactly what I wanted to do, because I had an internship set up with a radio station in Los Angeles. I was super excited about it. But I went that route, and it's been really good. I liked what Christina said about, just try new things. You never know what's going to happen. And from there, I've worked at a nonprofit. I've worked as a public relations manager for home improvement chain. I worked for Cox Communications as a product manager. And then I got my job at Zovio, interestingly enough, and it was to run in their community relations efforts. And I had never really done that before. It sounded very exciting, and I just went for it. And I have to say, this is the best job I've ever had. I've been with the organization. It'll be 12 years in April. I can't believe that. I was, just 15 when I started. So, but it's been really great. So that would be just my words of encouragement to our juniors and seniors still in high school, is that you never know where your career may lead you to, and to take those chances and learn. I love some of the advice that people have given. And the other thing that Hope, you said that I really was inspired by is always look for yourself in STEM, because you never know what you're doing actually impacts the STEM career. And I do like the question that someone asked about as a woman feeling an imposter in the STEM field. And so I would just love to hear from our speakers today how they would like to address that.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Jennifer. That was wonderful. I love to see that you have this passion for music and all these different things. And again, you had this journey that didn't look like this, right? It looked like spaghetti all thrown together in a bowl, right? Kind of messy and twists and turns. So we do have some really great questions in the chat. So thank you everyone for putting those as well in there. So let's start with that one. You know, at times feels like women in STEM might be like, you know, feel like an imposter. And how do you overcome that feeling, right? That you might not belong, like seeing yourself in that field. So let's see, do we want to start with Leanne? Do you have any thoughts about that? And then we'll kind of go around the horn.
Sure. I mean, I think that's probably a very common feeling for any woman working in STEM, especially coming back from my time. Like, you know, I'm a little bit older, I think, than some of these other speakers, but it wasn't, I wasn't pushed into STEM. And just to share, my initial path was in nursing. I got out of high school and went into nursing school because that's what I was told that, you know, in my area where I grew up, most women went into nursing. So that's where I just thought my path should be. I'm glad that I didn't, ended up being in accounting, and then ended up, it's kind of what Christina was saying too about learning, hey, I'm pretty good in Excel. I really like data and I can automate these things. And so I just took everything that I learned along the way. And, you know, you overcome that fear of being an imposter because you just have to believe in your abilities, what you can provide. And then you start hearing feedback from people who you're providing, you're making their day easier. If you've automated something for them, it makes their day, their process easier to where they can focus on things that are more important. So just hearing that feedback, that helps obviously drive your confidence in what you're providing and the value that you're providing to the organization.
Great, thank you. Emily, any thoughts you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think feeling like an imposter is so common. And honestly, it's something that I initially struggled with and sometimes still struggle with today, right? We always question like, oh, will someone find out that I'm not the smartest person in the room? And I think one, it's recognizing that no matter what room you're in, you can be in a room with brilliant scientists, or engineers, your ideas still have value. Everyone's ideas are unique. So that's something that really helps. And the other thing is making sure that you don't let the feeling of being scared like overcome you. There are so many times where I doubted myself, where I wanted to back out of my product management career. And I almost did because I thought, you know, I was surrounded in rooms full of men because when I first entered the field, I didn't work with any women. And even today, I wish I worked with more women in product management. And I almost backed out. And, you know, my mentor at the time, this was actually at the children's toy company, came to me and he's like, I wouldn't have selected you if I didn't think you could do it. And that's something that I've really learned. So don't let the fear of failing, the fear of, you know, saying something wrong stop you from trying. That's the most important thing. We all get scared. We all get scared of feeling like an imposter. Don't let it stop you.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Thank you. Rachel, anything that you want to add that hasn't been said?
Sure. Yeah, two thoughts. The first thought is kind of this phrase, fake it until you make it. I think we've all heard that before, but I think especially with imposter syndrome, it can be true that we can get into this like negative mind space of doubting oneself. And as Emily was saying, that can prevent you from really contributing in a meaningful way. And so I think entering into a conversation with confidence, even if that's not how you feel, you're going to fake that confidence, that can be felt by other people in the room. And that can help you feel like, okay, I'm a part of this conversation and as Emily said, ideas have value. I think the second part that I would talk about is kind of finding a community of people, of women who are also in STEM fields. And I think that there are organizations of women in product management and software development, women who code, all sorts of different meetups and other types of organizations that are, you know, women who are supporting other women in the field. And I think that's really helpful to find a community where you feel comfortable and safe and that you can learn from the other people around you. And you can also have honest conversations about any sort of challenges that you might be confronting in your day-to-day work. I think that those two have been really helpful for me in terms of encountering countering imposter syndrome. But I will say, I still feel it. It's a regular occurrence. And I think it's probably, in most cases, better that you feel not overwhelmed, but challenged, right? And that you're in a place where you are growing as opposed to feeling very confident, because then you're kind of static and you know, the potential for growth is decreasing then.
Yeah, brilliant. That's great, right? I mean, I think that was such great advice for everyone watching in here, and just even a good reminder probably for some of us, right? We do feel that day to day, but having that support group around us and not completely faking, right? But being confident in who we are, so we don't, you know, feel that when we're in a group of people. That's great advice. Christina, is there anything you'd like to add as well?
Well, I think my answer is going to be very different than what everyone else has said, because I don't think that I felt like an imposter before. I've been the only woman working in a team, but I think I'm just too focused on driving results and working and asking questions and trying to learn, and I'm just focused on my work. I don't ever let other feelings get into my head. I'm just, if there's something I don't know, I'll ask questions, and then I'll bother those people that know the answer until they give me the answer. So I don't think I felt that before. I think what has helped, and maybe I've just been lucky that I've worked with wonderful people that are just really helpful, or maybe I'm just that annoying person that they know that won't leave until they they give the answer that I want. So I would say, if you ever feel that, just focus on yourself, focus on what you know you can do, focus on your work. Don't focus on those feelings. They'll go away.
I think that's great. And I love that it's, you know, showing the whole spectrum. So it's your circle of control, right? What is it you can control and when can you not control? And you can control your own attitude and your own work ethic and how you show up each day. And so not to get distracted by all of the other things that could come in. So I think that's great advice. Thank you. I love that perspective. We have so many questions. Okay, we have a 4th grade class that is watching. And the 4th graders want to know, what is your favorite project to date? So maybe we'll go, let's see, how about Christina, are you good to go first? And then we'll go backwards back to Leanne.
There are so many projects that I've been part of and that I've loved, but maybe because this one's just more recent and because I feel like it had a bigger impact so far. I was part of a project where I had to create a dashboard for advisors so they could actually see the assignments of their students and who, you know, was missing an assignment, who needed to get called, who's not attending class. So we put a dashboard together. We created a model for them, and they use that on a daily basis to figure out who they need to call once they're in class, who's missing their assignments, who has a lower grade. So I feel because of that impact, that's not only impacting enrollment advisors, but also students and their experience. I feel like that would be the project that I would pick.
Awesome. Let's see, Rachel, what about you?
Yeah, thanks. Good question. So many projects, I agree. But something that I've worked on recently that I really enjoyed working on is our new cybersecurity training program. So Full Stack Academy has a boot camp, which is a program that someone can go through to get the skills needed to start a job in a new career field. So our new cybersecurity boot camp is 17 weeks long, and about 2 years ago, we didn't know what it was going to look like at all. And so taking an idea, so we built this boot camp in conjunction with the city of New York, which was a really fun facet of this project, which is working directly with an arm of the city government and understanding sort of the parameters around those types of projects. We went from an idea to an outline of, okay, what is it exactly that we need to teach, to, okay, what does a classroom day look like, to what is our pedagogy, to building out actual content. So having lectures and slides and workshops and exercises, to, okay, how do we market this opportunity? Who is a good candidate? How do we build an admissions process around this? To, okay, what is the student experience like when they're on the, first day in class with their laptop? What are we doing? And then of course, for product managers, it's not only just building and making it work, but also looking at the data and the feedback that we get from the users that are going through our program, and looking at, okay, what is it that we can improve to make this better? And so I really enjoyed this project because it was kind of outside the scope of what I was already familiar with. So I had done web development, I had done a little bit of mobile development, but here we were doing cybersecurity, which is a different technological field with a different set of skills and knowledge base. And so it was a really great opportunity for me to expand my knowledge of information technology, which I will admit was like next to zero before this program. And now I feel like I know so much more about that field. Now, cybersecurity is probably not going to be my next career move, but it has been so rewarding to be able to sort of learn the base competency in that area to be able to help other people join that field. So I think that's been my favorite project so far.
Very cool. Emily, what about you?
I have so many. I love all of my projects. I absolutely love my job. But something more recently that I worked on at TutorMe was, TutorMe offers their online tutoring for students, but we also partner with universities. And something that I worked on was internally, we were doing a lot of work to set up each school under sort of a district. And I was looking at sort of how this was being done and how schools were able to see sort of their usage. So I worked on a project to sort of improve that process. Number one, for internal teams, so that they could easily sort of set up all of the accounts, and also for the schools, so that they could better see usage for each school. So that was a really fun project because you could really see sort of the impact on internal teams, the excitement there, as well as impact for our customers. So that was a really great project. Other fun projects I've worked on, the toy business was of course really fun, building robotics and animatronics and things like that.
Great. And Leanne, what about you?
First, I think it's fantastic that we have fourth graders that have this type of a question. So just want to go back, like I have kids too that are teenagers, and I've tried to express to them how coding is fun, and they just look at me cross-eyed like, coding is not fun, Mom, it's not fun at all. But it can be fun, because the coding that you are doing in middle school and elementary school and into high school now will carry on into your careers at some point. Because so to fast forward that into a project for me, and to kind of relate it to maybe what you're doing even in middle school or elementary school, that little bit of coding that you're doing that allows the dinosaur to run across the screen, we do that coding on the back end of these dashboards that provides, drop down filters and ideas to allow the business to interact with the dashboards and get the answers they want. So I'm speaking of the state of enrollment dashboard that we built out and that we automated for the organization. It was once an Excel spreadsheet. We took it into Power BI. We did all this fancy code behind it to allow for all of this interaction to happen on the front end UI for the business to start interacting with it and slice the data in 100 different ways to get the answers that they need at their fingertips. So all of that code that's happening behind the scenes, the business doesn't get to see, but that's the fun part. That's like the man behind the curtain, or the woman behind the curtain. And we wrote that, and it's fun to see that magic that you write in the back end kind of come to the front end, and it just looks like a little simple drop-down box. But there's code and there's logic and there's things that are happening to allow that dashboard to work. So I would encourage everyone in elementary school, high school, middle school, keep up with that coding, because it will translate someday, and it can be very fun.
That's awesome. I absolutely agree, right? Coding is so important. There's just so many fun ways out there now too, to engage in coding that it's not, the traditional, like when I was taking a coding, in college, it was like a little boring and dry. Now there's so many cool ways to learn it and be a lot more engaging. So we have so many questions. This is great. So from CSO Saiba, what advice or classes would you recommend someone take in high school if their school doesn't offer certain classes in more advanced STEM? So advice or classes you'd recommend if the high school, or even if their high school does, but what kind of classes would you recommend or any other advice to give if maybe they don't have all the offerings at their school? So Emily, do you want to go first this time?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think something that really helped me in high school was some of those sort of more basic classes. I didn't necessarily know that I was going into a technology career, but things like my high school statistics and simple like algebra courses helped me do things like data analysis later on in my career. Building some of those fundamentals is really important. Also, things that I did in high school, really learning how to communicate and collaborate. Group projects, I remember them in school. They were never that much fun, but as my role as a product manager now, it's my job to motivate a team. And I work with a lot of diverse groups. So really embrace those group projects and figure out ways. Maybe there's your English class, or maybe even a debate class on the side. Figure out how to build your confidence to speak in front of people, because it's all about presenting your ideas and presenting yourself. Those are some really foundational skills that will take you anywhere.
Wonderful. Rachel, what about you?
Yeah, such a great question. And I really love everything that Emily had to say. I feel very similarly. Outside of like, if you're really interested in coding and advanced math topics, right, those are good options for you. I also think like harder sciences like physics and even biology can be really helpful. But in my role as a product manager, I'll echo what Emily said. A lot of what I do is around communication. So being able to clearly describe what it is that the goal is, right, and to have a clear narrative is something that's really important. And so when I was in high school, I actually did a lot of writing for like a school newspaper. And I think that was really helpful in terms of helping me write concisely and have strong written communication skills, which have carried me through multiple different roles, right? Being able to get across ideas and build a consensus with the people that you work with, and making sure that they have a shared idea with you. That is really key to, I think, success in lots of roles in STEM and outside of STEM. So I would definitely say that in addition to these math and science topics, that communication and writing is pretty important. At least for me.
Yeah, no, it's great. Christina, what do you think?
So yeah, I agree with Emily and Rachel. The regular math classes, English, communication. One that I remember that was offered at my high school that no one really seemed to like or love was just a regular computer class where they taught you how to type. And everyone hated it because they would put this thing on top of your hands and you needed to learn how to type. But that is helpful because when you're coding, you want to be able to do it fast. So I also want to mention that if you notice, everything that we mentioned is just the core classes that they do offer, those that you guys probably don't like, but they will help you and they're there for a reason. And if they don't offer a STEM class and you're interested in something, you now have Google and you can Google it, and don't stop at the courses that they're offering. Go to YouTube, get a free course in YouTube. They have so many tutorials. So I think that would be what I would say is the classes that you're taking right now, the core classes are there for a reason. Focus on those. And then if there's anything else that you're curious about, look it up on YouTube and learn it that way.
Great. I love that idea. Leanne, what about you?
Yeah, so I think you all covered all the classes and the courses you could take. I think those are all great. In addition to that, being involved in just a team sport that gives you, and it doesn't have to be sport like we think football or softball or baseball. It could be band, it could be anything. It could be class, something in the class, like just some sort of a team involvement that helps you work with others. And I was just going to say, really find yourself and do some research and do some legwork on your own. Whenever I did get started and I took that job and I had no idea how to write SQL, the very first month, I literally bought a SQL book and I went from front to end. I built my own database, I set up my own server, I built my own tables, I built my own objects, and I just followed it along word for word in that book. I made flags in it, I marked things, I highlighted the heck out of it. But I really taught myself that whole month. I was committed to teaching and going through that book. And you can probably find that book now online. Like I had to do it with a book, but that really gave me kind of like my foundation. All of these classes, all these maths and science, those are great because that's going to build your foundation. But there's a lot that you have to kind of legwork that you have to do on your own and research you have to do on your own and the willingness just to learn and dig in.
Yeah, I love that. I want to comment on that. And then Samson, there was a great question for you in the chat. I don't know if you want to maybe type your answer to it. It was from CSO Marissa, because we have just a few minutes left and I want to ask the panel one more question. But Leanne, to your point, I once had when I worked at the university, I had a dean who told us, you're the CEO of your own life. And he was like, listen, we can provide all sorts of things, but at the end of the day, you're in charge of yourself. So go out and do it. Like I shouldn't have to tell you every single step. If you want to progress, be the CEO of your own life. Get out there, figure it out, take chances and buy that book on SQL and build all your databases and all the different things, right? So take charge of yourself. And I always loved that piece of advice that he gave. So I think that was a great nugget for everyone. Okay, last question. We have about 3 minutes left. And sorry for anybody. I know there were so many great questions in the chat that I wasn't able to get to them all today, but thank you for everybody being so engaged. This has been wonderful. My last question would be, what advice would you give your 14-year-old self? So I'll give you a quick second to think about that. And then if anybody feels great and want to go first, otherwise I'll call on somebody. All right, Emily, I'm you first. It was like that.
Yep.
Go for it.
I think the biggest piece of advice, and I talked about this a little bit when we talked about imposter syndrome, is don't let the fear of failing stop you from trying. And that's the biggest piece of advice that I can give. I myself experienced sort of the fear and wanting to go back into my shell and having to break out of that. But, I've built really successful products, but I've also built products that failed and that lost companies money. But it's from those mistakes, from those failures that I learned and improved and became the product manager that I am today. If it wasn't for that, I probably wouldn't be as good at my job. So embrace your mistakes, embrace those failures and learn from them and grow from them. But whatever you do, don't let them stop you from trying to do something.
Love that. Love that. Yep. Fail fast. Like we said, fail fast, fail forward, fail often, and fail smart. It was great. So Leanne, what about you?
So I would tell my 14-year-old self to find my passion and do what I love. Don't feel like I have to have the answer or know everything and be the smartest person in the room all the time. Because when you're 14, you think you know a lot and you really, really do know a lot. My kids are smart. They're wicked smart. But there's, there's things that you encounter as you get into the workforce that you learn and you grow from. You're always content. So always be curious, always ask questions. And actually, to be successful, I think be comfortable being uncomfortable. Like put yourself in situations that force you to stretch yourself and grow. Don't be content. Always kind of keep pushing yourself. Once you reach a goal, let's go to the next goal. What's the next step? Always have a next step.
I love that. Thank you. Christina.
So thinking about, where I was and what I used to do when I was 14, it reminded me of something that my math teacher wrote in my yearbook when I was in high school. And in one part of everything that she wrote, it was, thank you for all the questions that you always ask. And that's funny because up to now, I still ask a lot of questions. And so I would tell myself to continue to ask questions and to stay focused on my goals, because I remember when I was in college and I had to work part-time and I didn't have a car, and there were so many things that I could have just said, I don't want to do this anymore, because my friends were having fun and I wasn't, because I didn't have time. So I would just say keep focused on your goal, because it's going to be worth it at the end.
Love it. Love it. And Rachel, last bit of advice before we close out.
Oh, that's a lot of pressure. There's been some really great advice here today, and I would echo all of that. What I would add to it is just say that not to be too concerned with getting the right path the first time, that I personally don't believe that there is one right path, but rather that you contain multitudes and that there is so much that you can do. And it's more about finding what makes you happy and that you feel like you are good at. And for me, that comes from a place of constantly challenging myself and approaching any new challenge with just being genuine about, I don't know how this works, but I want to learn how this works. And so I'm going to go after it. And I think that other people often will recognize that too, because they have been in that place too. People who you idolize were once not at that position, but were where you are now. And so I think people will recognize when someone is motivated and just genuinely wants to learn and grow, and will often support that. So I encourage you to find your bliss, as they say.
Oh, I love that. Well, ladies, thank you so much for your time today and really representing the T in STEM today, in International Women and Girls and Women in STEM. It was just delightful to hear about your journeys and like that messy spaghetti, once again, right? Not that clear path, and just sharing your wisdom with everybody on the call today. I know we have several teachers who are going to take this and use it in their classrooms later, so I think it'll be really inspiring for those that couldn't attend in person today, well, in person, virtually today, but to be able to use this later on. And for those of, especially we have several CSOs on today, they just, are chatting how inspirational this was and how much they really value you taking the time to do this. So thank you again. And Zovio, overall, Jennifer and Samson, thank you so much for putting this together for us today. We really value your partnership. And we look forward for the next one coming up in a few weeks. So thank you all so much. And hope you have a wonderful and blessed rest of your day. We'll talk to you later.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.